Hello, everybody, and welcome to Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network. You could also find me on theconsciousresistance.com and theseedsofliberty.com. So today we have Jackie Ray coming in from the state of Washington. She is a voluntarist anarchist and an unschooling mother of three boys, a 25-year-old, 17-year-old, and a 15-year-old. And so I'm really looking forward to a conversation about her unschooling style, because there's so many different ways to do it. And one of the most common questions people ask me is, what's a typical day? And, what curriculum do you use? And, these kinds of things. And so they really want to hear different perspectives, right? So that's why I love interviewing various unschooling and homeschooling mothers. So, so Jackie, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I see you. I've been seeing you all the time on Facebook, liking and sharing my posts. Thank you very much.
Oh, sure.
And you post a lot of great stuff yourself.
Thanit's
funny. It reminds me of this one meme where it's like, you post something about, government corruption or drone strikes or war, and you get 3 likes, 4 likes, 1 comment. And then you post something about a cat video, right? Thousands.
Exactly. Yes. I think that people get uncomfortable with admitting where they stand on, these things. So they don't want to show where they are on these things, so they won't like them. But they'll like the cat ones because they're fun.
Yeah, and I guess you're not putting yourself on the line. You don't have to defend your perspective.
Yeah.
You're right. I think people get defensive, and it's
Indeed.
It's so sad. It's like the most the issues that are having the most detrimental effects on the most people, everybody's silent on.
Exactly. Indeed, that's been my experience for sure.
And so I think it's I think it was Leonardo da Vinci. He said the best approval that you can give to tyrants is your silence.
Yes.
Right. So that's just speaking up and talking and sharing information. That's one way you can express your disapproval of certain things. So so before we get into your unschooling philosophy, can you go into how you became a voluntarist? How you stumbled along this philosophy?
Absolutely. It actually came from my unschooling. So when I became an unschooler, everything just kind of fell together for me because I became so anti-school that it just seemed, I don't know how to say it, but it just seemed really wrong to continue to advocate a political party, and so with unschooling came my I sort of slid over into libertarianism, and I thought at first that it would be better to work the system, being in it, having someone speaking, and working from inside. But I realized as I grew that the corruption it's just too much. There's just no way. So then I slid over into anarchy. I mean, it was just like, and I was there. So it just came from my my belief in not being a part of the system as far as school goes. It just didn't make any sense for me to advocate a vote or stand behind any political party at all. So I was there 100%.
So what books or personalities or YouTubers really influenced you regarding I guess unschooling, since that came first, right, and then voluntarism? So right.
John Holt and John Taylor Gatto. I also read a lot of internet stuff by Joyce Federal.
Yeah, heard of her. Yeah.
I think it's joyfullyrejoicing.com is her site. Yeah. And she really spoke to me. And from there, I read Alfie Kohn. and he really affected my parenting philosophy. We never were spankers or used corporal punishment in any way, even when we were using curriculum and things like that. We always I tended to go more towards like a timeout, but then I even realized that was ineffective and kind of not cruel, but just, well, it was mean, kind of, I guess. And my little boy would cry even sitting in the corner. So I knew that it was affecting him in a negative way. I just didn't know that there was anything else other than that. I mean, there was either two choices. There was either spanking or correction. And I didn't know to what extent you could use correction. So, yeah. And so that was it. And so and then from there, my parenting and the unschooling, I kind of gravitated to the anarchy thing. And Larkin Rose was a huge influence. And Stefan Molyneux, I watched a lot of his YouTube videos. Yeah. And then, of course, as I noticed that there was a lot of Facebook and YouTube personalities. Then I found you, and I found Luis Fernando Mises, and oh gosh, there's so many people. I mean, that have affected me. There's so many awesome people out there. That's very, very pleased to be mentioned next to Larkin Rose and Molly. That's an honor, because for me, my oldest is 5, and when he was just born. We didn't do the corporal punishment, but yeah, I guess you didn't know what to do, so like cry it out, not cry it out. You just don't know. You don't know, and you get different suggestions from family members, and then so then eventually my wife sent me a video, Stefan Molyneux, about it's like the truth about spanking, I think, and that's the first time I heard of him, and so I heard that video. I'm like, this is awesome. This makes sense. And then I got introduced to voluntarism through him, and yes, so everything else came after that. He had a mix of quality parenting advice and voluntarism. It all kind of just melded together, and that is a lot of the reason that I was like, this makes a lot of sense. And so the more that I listened to him, the more I wanted to listen. And I started to listen to Free Domain Radio and the podcasts, and I watched his YouTube channels and read everything I could get my hands on, everything that he recommended. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And it was a lot of information, but it was a lot of great information. And I was immediately impassioned by it, and just wanted to, get out there and share what I had, learned for myself with others, which is why I do what I do. I basically do my activism on Facebook, because I'm just trying to reach as many people as possible, much in the same way that I was reached.
So do you think, since you become more active on Facebook, sharing this kind of information, have people, like your friends, looked at you differently or asked you certain questions, or like have they engaged you at all? Absolutely.
I've actually lost more relationships than I've gained.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And, it's that the way of thinking that, if you're not, hitting your kid, if you're not disciplining your kid in a way that the society thinks is the right way, then you have to be wrong, or people have said that I was crazy. And, because my teen boys, they don't know what it's like to be punished because they've never experienced it. They've never had to. There's nothing that they've ever done that that I've said, I need to, invoked my brand of discipline because you're doing something that I, am not comfortable with. It's as simple as saying, okay, this is something that makes me uncomfortable. We talk about it and it's over. I mean, either they continue on their path and make tweaks as needed, or, they find something else. It's really a simple thing. You just talk to your kids and they, they'll respect you and they'll listen. They'll hear you out.
Yeah. It's almost like our message is like, communication, love, trust, peace, things like that. Nothing what I consider revolutionary, but apparently to some people it is.
Uh-huh.
Treat your kid as an equal, right, rather than as an inferior, like,
Right. Right. And people just don't get that. They don't see that as they figure that you're just either letting them run wild and they're going to walk all over you and mistreat you, and that's not the way it is. The difference in that is that I've termed it as permissive parenting, but other people have talked to me on that one as well, and I saw a little bit of a different perspective about that. It's not necessarily being permissive. It's just allowing your kids to figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to interfere. You can if it gets to a place where it's uncomfortable, but you can let them suffer a natural consequence, if it's something that's, yes, I want to keep them safe and, away from dangerous things, but there are dangerous things out there. My son is driving now and, he's out there on the roads, and every day when he leaves, I'm not scared, but I do think about, his safety when he leaves. And I always, encourage him to be careful and not to text while he's driving and things like that. So, you just got to talk to him and let him know that you care. You can't just say, well, I'm afraid to offend them. I'm afraid to say something to them that will make them angry or upset with me. That's where that disconnect comes in, and you start to see the rebellion and, okay, you don't care, I don't care either kind of behaviors arising.
Yeah. Like, we were talking before how I think that trust is one of the most important things you can establish with your kid. It's like, people think, no, it's more important that they learn this. They have to learn history. They have to learn math. They have to learn respect. Well,
yeah.
None of that matters if they don't trust you, right?
Exactly.
Nothing that you say, they're going to take. Maybe they'll give you a nod, they give you a nod, and then when they leave, they're going to just do whatever they want to do behind your back. But if they trust you and they want to talk to you about sensitive issues, you can't get any better than that.
Yes. And, my kids are at that age where, sex is coming up a lot, and, there's girlfriends and, I just want them to be safe and protected. And, that's all that matters to me. It doesn't really matter to me, what else happens. It's just, I want them to be safe and protected. That is the bottom line when it comes to it.
Yeah, and I guess especially parents with daughters, because the daughter has so much more to invest in if she does get pregnant.
And yes, absolutely.
And I see that in myself. Like when my daughter's older, I want to, I want her to feel comfortable with me or with my wife, that she can talk about those things. But yeah, it's definitely really scary. Like you said, like the way I describe peaceful parenting is like. We protect our kids from serious harm. Like you wouldn't let your kid run in the street. You wouldn't let them walk off a cliff.
Right.
Serious stuff. But there's stuff. There's like you said, natural consequences in life that happen and that are great learning tools. Like for example, falling off a bike. Right. You only learn how to ride a bike by falling. Right. You only you only learn about. To respect fire by teaching kids about matches, and maybe they get burned once or twice, and they're like, all right, I gotta be careful around a fire, or even knives, A lot of parents are overly protective about knives in their kids, and I've been meeting a lot of unschooling parents that give knives to their kids. I like outdoor stuff, and it really, to most people, I could see that as being shocking, but they're getting them used to it and having them respect potentially dangerous things.
Absolutely. We're a hunting family, so we have lots of knives, lots of guns, So my kids have been around that stuff since really young, and they've been taught. All the safety measures, and they've taken safety classes in order to get the permits that the government requires, And so they definitely have been around it, and they know. So a lot of people probably think that we're crazy or, dangerous because we have, guns and knives and our kids have been around them. But I think it's important that people distinguish the difference between having those things in your home and just, just having them versus getting in there with your kids and, showing them what to do, what not to do, and all the safety precautions that need to be taken when you're handling them.
Have you been approached by people like when your kids are either with knives or guns, and they like scold you as a parent for allowing your children to have that?
I personally haven't. I'm not really into it as much as the rest of my family is.
Okay.
So typically when they go out, I don't go with them because I'm not into the hunting thing.
Okay.
Targets and shooting at other things, that's entirely different. But
Okay.
I'm not into the going out and hunting the animals type of thing. So I haven't personally, and I think that most of the people around here, a lot of them are also into it.
Cool. That helps.
Yeah, it's an area, just this little town that we're in particular, that is more hunting centric, more gun friendly. If you wander outside of this town and you go north a little bit, there's the state capital is more liberal, and that's where you would find people that would be upset about the gun issue.
Right. So, can you go into a little bit about your unschooling philosophy and if you have a curriculum or not? Although I can gather, but
yeah,
but
no.
if you can explain, what your approach is to that, and
Sure. We just basically have centered everything that we do around our children's interests. And so there has been a lot of traveling, exploring, hiking, a lot of outdoorsman type things. My kids like to ride motorcycles, quads,
wow.
Like I said, the shooting thing, boats, fishing, hiking, adventure type stuff. Also, my youngest son is into computers, so he just built his own gaming system from the bottom up.
Wow.
It took him about 2 days. So apparently he pretty much knew what he was doing with a little bit of dad's help.
Wow.
So yeah, it's basically just, asking the kids, what do you guys want to do? And in the early days, it was a lot of art stuff, craft stuff, hands-on stuff. They built stuff. They created their own skate park in my backyard. They built their own skateboard ramp.
Wow.
And
cool.
Yeah, so they're into building. I mean, they know how to do a lot of real world things versus, I mean, even music, guitars and drums. We've had it all. We've done a lot of things, and it's been a lot of fun. And so no, there's no sitting down at the table with a book unless that's something that they're interested in. I mean, yeah, there's been books, of course, things that they're into that they want to learn about. And if that's the only way to obtain the information, they'll go to a book. But I think they're a lot more hands-on, and they like to get their hands into what they're doing. And so like I said, they built a chicken coop, and they helped build on to our home. We have a family room that they helped build, and
nice.
Like I said, cars. There's no taking our cars to an auto shop. If they can fix it, they're going to fix it themselves, and it's not going to just be one person out there. They're all going to get out there and get in there and
wow.
and fix it. Yeah. So there's just, the entire world is out there, and you can learn from anything and everything. And I just been very proactive about making sure that they are learning skills that they can use in their lives from an entrepreneurial perspective. Like I said, our family works in, we have a small business and everybody in the family works in it. So everybody has a job to do from that perspective. There's so many things that they could do. And so they've worked from, about 11 years old. They started off, working on the weekends and sometimes a little bit in the evenings, for a few hours and kind of built up from there. And so, they have a place in the business if that's what they want to do. And we're not discouraging them from going out and finding, other passions. My middle son likes to build car stereos. So he's talked about getting a job just for fun, just putting together car stereos. So, yeah. Cool. The learning never ends. It really doesn't.
Yeah, what's funny is when I talk to people about unschooling and they say, "Oh, so you're not gonna put your kids in school, so they're just gonna have free time? You're just gonna let them play video games all day long?" And what they don't realize is that most of the kids who do things that they consider to be unproductive, like let's say watching TV or playing video games, are actually, in a way, ways of escape from a life that they're forced into, right? They didn't have a choice whether or not they want to go to public school. They're forced into there. They're forced to learn this stuff, whether it's interesting or not, right? And after, I don't know how many hours they spend, being forced, and then once they have a little bit of a sliver of free time, they just want to get as far away from that as possible and do the most unproductive thing. Is that really a surprise to them?
Right, exactly. I mean, my kids, that's what we talk about with people that can't grasp that, is that, my kids have days where that's what they want to do. They want to veg out and watch TV or play on the computer all day long. And I don't have a problem with it because they do a lot of other things. They're working on cars, they're playing soccer. Both boys play soccer year round. One of them plays on a premier team in a Mexican league.
Wow.
Nice. We're one of the only white people, but he loves it.
Breaking stereotypes. I like it.
Yes. And and it's great because I'm, learning some Spanish along the way because it's something that I'm, that I want. And so it's a learning opportunity for me as well. And so it's really cool. And, we communicate with the parents and we do the best that we can on that. Some of them can't speak English, but others, they got some of it down. And so we do the best as we can as far as me not understanding them and them not understanding me. But they play soccer and they have other interests other than watching TV or video games. So I've never worried, not for 1 minute, about them just wasting away in front of the TV or, on games because, there's just so much other stuff going on all the time that it just is not, it wasn't ever a concern at all.
Yeah. And the other thing I get asked is, so, I mean, don't you want your kid to have a nice job, have a nice car, have a nice house, get a degree, all this stuff. And I'm like, no, actually, I want my son to be happy. That's, I think, the most important thing. Because if he has those things and he's not happy, then they don't matter. Exactly.
And, we're kind of in that world, too, because both my boys play soccer for our local high school. And so we see a lot of that. And we get asked by parents, aren't you worried that your son's not going to have a high school diploma? Aren't you worried that he's not going to go to college? I'm just like, no, I'm not worried about it at all. Yeah. I didn't finish high school. I don't have a high school diploma. I went on and got a GED, and I did go to college for a little bit because that's what happened to me. I was hearing it constantly. You need to go to college, or you're not going to ever get a job, and you're never going to be able to, because I was a single mother,
Yeah.
a young single mother. And, you need to get out there and go to college and get a job so you can support your son. And so that's what I thought I had to do. But I was miserable there. I was absolutely 100% miserable, just like I was when I was in high school. And the whole entire reason that I disengaged, because I was bored with the material. It had no, it did not interest me in one iota. I mean, some subjects, yes. Other things, I just shut it out, didn't want to hear it. And so I didn't listen, didn't study, didn't pass the tests. And, I just, I totally disengaged from it. And my parents weren't the type to sit there and, if you don't get this grade, you don't get that grade, then this is going to happen or that's going to happen. They just got mad. They got pissed and just disconnected from me. So I figured, well, if they don't care, I don't care. And that's what happened, And even if they did care, I think it would have come from a negative place.
Right.
So then I would have still disconnected anyway, And that is really a big problem, I think, in the parent-child connection and what expectations are of them as far as their education goes.
Yeah. The other thing I like to point out to people when they say, don't you want your kids to get an education? What do you talk about? You're not going to send them to school. And I say, well, I mean, I think when you're forced to learn something against your will, you can't call it education, right? Education is voluntary. You learn something that you want to learn. If you're forced to learn it, that's called indoctrination, right? It's a little bit different.
Absolutely.
So we should get
agree.
We should get definitions down first.
Yes.
I wrote a book, or not a book, an article called "Learning and Living Are Inseparable." And like you said, if you're living, you're learning. It's not confined to classrooms and a desk and a teacher writing on a chalkboard.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's really important. It's a really important distinction, I think, that needs to be made as far as learning and education. I mean, living and learning are synonymous. I think they go together, and you can't do one without the other. It just doesn't happen.
No, definitely not.
So,
yeah, and I've the most valuable things that I learned in high school were stuff that I was interested outside of high school.
Yes,
all the books and all, like, I'm into chess and piano, so all that stuff was outside of high school, and all the books on physics, cosmology, astronomy, and holistic medicine. All that stuff was outside of philosophy, Eastern, all that stuff.
Yes.
Nobody in high school told me to read this book or you're going to be tested on it. No, it's because I wanted to read it.
Exactly. Yes, and it was things that interested you outside of what the school decided you needed to know to be able to live in the world. And these kids, they go until they're 18, and then they're expected to know what they're going to do with their lives. The minute they're 18, their parents are ready to send them out the door into the world. And, they're so not ready. Yeah. I mean, you see it all the time. They're not there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
they're not being equipped with the tools at all.
And the thing is, I don't think you can, like all these central planners, they try to, like you say, equip kids with the tools, but they can't, because they don't know what the future is. Nobody knows what the future is. How do you know what our kids are going to need in 20 years? Nobody does. And it's like I tell people who send their kids to public school, I'm like, imagine 20 years ago when the internet was just getting started, parents had an idea. This is what you're going to need to know in 20 years.
Exactly.
Because this is what, if you want to get a job, how many of them could have predicted Google, Wikipedia, YouTube,
There's
any
no
of that?
way.
How many of them could have predicted that? And how much that has transformed our lives and changed everything,
Indeed.
And it's just amazing how these people, they think they know what people need 20 years into the future. What the hell? You don't even know what you need next week or next month.
Well, look how much technology has changed things, and things just are constantly, I mean, they're ever changing faster than ever now. And so, yeah, they're even, 20 years ago saying 20 years from now, things now 20 years from now,
Right.
really,
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
there's no way. I mean, things are changing at such a rapid pace that there's no way that they could prepare. I mean, preparing is something that kind of goes along with living. And like, you know, these kids that are going to college and they're coming out with these degrees and they're not able to find a job in that field because that field is becoming so quickly obsolete that they can't, you know, there's nothing to do in that field. And they have to continue to learn in that field because it's evolving constantly, you know. So,
you know, one of my favorite videos I saw. Do you follow Peter Schiff at all? He's a gold, silver guy.
oh yeah.
Okay, so he did a video down in New Orleans, and he was interviewing different people working, like, you know, people working in like the taxi cabs, bouncers, you know, street vendors, and he asked each one of them, "Did you go to college?" "Yes." "What's your degree?" And they're like, business or liberal arts or women's studies or medieval history. "How much debt are you in?" $50,000.
Oh my God.
And there's street vendors and bouncers, and it's so sad.
Very.
And that's what we're preparing. That's what we're preparing our kids for. It's like we're just preparing them to go into debt. You know, that's all. Like, everybody's in debt. You must go into debt. Everybody, you know, it's what everybody.
It's true. I mean, I can't believe what I, you know, even in my very early 20s, what I thought we were supposed to do. You know, you're supposed to buy this house and you're supposed to have credit cards and you're supposed to have a car and a car payment and, you know, you're supposed to go out and work 9 to 5.
Right.
And I believe that was all there was because I had so little exposure to, you know, anything really other than that small little box of, you know, you learn this, you do this, and that's, you know, that's it. That's all there is. And luckily, you know, there's an amazing world of opportunity out there, you know, even, you know, more now than there was back then. So, you know, I definitely don't worry that my kids are going to struggle, you know, because they didn't have the modern lifestyle, you know, that the society thinks everyone should have, that we've, you know, taught them that you don't have to, you know, buy a house anymore. And, you know, and my goal is just to say, you know, here's this house, you know, we made the mistake of buying it all those years ago. You can, you know, do whatever you want with it and, you know, either sell it, live in it, whatever, you know, and, you know, I don't want them to worry about those kind of things, because where you live is really not that big of a deal, you know. And I want our family to, you know, stay close and not be like, you know, some of my family, which is, you know, clear across the country, and, you know, I don't even really know them because, you know, my family came out here from Ohio when I was about 9 years old. And so away from all of the other families. So we were clear across, you know, the country from them. Yeah. And I would rather stay close. I mean, if they want to travel and go around, you know, the world, do whatever they want to do, I just want to stay connected, you know.
Right. And
versus not caring, you know.
And it's easier more than ever now to stay connected, right, than it was before.
Yeah, absolutely. Skyping.
Yeah, exactly. And like, that kind of brings to mind, you know, talking about family and, you know, parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles is some people say, you know, you have to respect your elders. I really hate that expression.
Yes.
because it's like being a family member. That's not an achievement, right? It's just it's our reproductive capability. It means you had kids or you were born, and that has no.
You didn't get to choose your family.
Yeah, you didn't get to choose your family. That didn't result from any individual action that you took. So why should that deserve respect? See, I don't respect family because they're family. I respect like principles and actions, right?
Right. If they've earned that title, then yeah, then absolutely. But if, like, you know, in my family, there's been a lot of, you know, struggles, and like with my brother, and so there's been this estrangement, and, you know, you can only do what you can do, and I'm not gonna force a relationship that, you know, doesn't want to be, you know what I mean?
No, no, yeah, yeah, definitely, you definitely can. I mean, I don't want to create enemies. But you're gonna speak your mind and speak what you believe is the truth, and you're gonna live by your principles, and hopefully
Mm-hmm.
teach your kids to be empathetic and compassionate and moral and loving people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's how I think we ultimately can change the world, is we start with ourselves and then our kids, right? And
Mm-hmm.
even your kids, you can barely control your kids. Who can control their kids? Nobody. I mean, most people can't even control themselves. So how do you expect to control your kids? It
Exactly.
really focuses on yourself first. So focus on the individual. That's what I tell people.
Yes. Yeah, that's good because, you know, it's just that control thing really is prevalent in our culture, in our society. Um, as as parents, it's like you come from a place of fear, and you think that if you can't get your kids in line, with what society says is the way your kids should be, as far as like respecting the elders, and um, you know just it's just there's so much. It's crazy. I mean, to think of what all the kids, are young people especially, are focused on as being nasty and out of control, and
Mm.
just and it's because the adults out there are not giving them respect. They're not modeling respect. And when there is respect, it's fake. And
Yeah.
you can tell it's not genuine. It's fake. And they can see that a mile away. Young people can read that, and they know,
Mm.
and, they're just going to say, well, F you,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
it's not, it's because they're not getting real, genuine interaction. They're not given, that real respect that they deserve. So, if they're not given it, how are they going to give it
Right.
themselves?
Yeah. So, I so my kids are 5 and 3, right? And
Hmm.
when people see me interact with them, they see that yeah, I don't I'm not gonna say I don't yell. I try not to yell, because it's like some things get passed down from your parents, and you just like
Right.
it's like you see you're a mirror of your parents, and I'm like, I gotta
Uh-huh.
constantly catch myself, calm down, lower your voice. You don't want them to yell, so then you don't yell, right? Like you
Uh-huh.
said, you got to be a good example, right? So I'm always trying to calm down and talk to them calmly, and explain things like why you're unhappy about something, and just talk to them, right? And then people talk to me like, why are you doing that? Don't you see your child's trying to control you? He's controlling you by by you giving into.
Oh.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, no, it's not about control. It's about communication as a peer, as an equal. Um, and I think I heard somebody said that you treat your children like you would like a guest in your house, like a neighbor. Like your neighbor drops something on the floor, you're not going to yell at your guest or your neighbor,
Right.
right?
Right. It's the same thing with, your spouse or your partner. You're not going to talk to them that way. You're going to give them, loving talk. You're not going to be all, get that or something. Why don't you answer the door?
Right.
I know that does happen in some relationships, but that doesn't happen in mine. And so, we don't, our kids are, and we're all sarcastic and smart ass to one another, and so we have our own little love language that goes on, but
Mm.
that happens in a house with teenage boys.
Yeah.
And so we have our own little love language, and somebody else might hear that and go, God, but they would have to know, us as a family unit, and how we are, in
Yeah.
order to, to not think that we were all crazy. But, you
Yeah.
know, as long as we know, when we're
Right.
talking to one another, that it's not serious, then
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's not a big deal. So,
Yeah, the other funny thing, when I tell people how I try to reason with my kids and talk to them calmly as peers, they say, "Well, why are you talking to your 3-year-old like that? She doesn't understand. She's only 3." which is,
want to make a bet?
which is, well, yeah, that's one part of it. But then the other part of it is, even if she doesn't understand, why are you gonna like talk down to her just because you think she doesn't understand? How is she gonna learn to reason if you're not reasoning with her?
Right.
Like, when do you think you're gonna
Exactly.
start? You know, it's like because my infant doesn't speak English, should I not talk English to my infant? You know, it
Exactly.
doesn't make sense.
It makes so much sense, but it's not common sense, I guess,
Yeah.
with people.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's definitely not common sense because you know, you get that so many times from people. Even my mother-in-law, she's Hungarian. She grew up in communist Romania,
Oh,
so you can imagine the amount of authoritarianism that she grew up in.
oh,
And
yeah.
my wife too. My wife grew up in communist Romania, and she came here when she was 12, 94, and communism fell in 89. So yeah, so she had a pretty interesting transition to here. But yeah, there's so much difference. Like when I go over to my mother-in-law's house, she lives close by, and the way she talks to my kids is yeah, very much like an inferior, and I don't like that. And I've gotten into frequent arguments with her, and I'm like, I don't parent like we don't talk to our kids like that. We don't yell, lower your voice, you know.
Yeah.
You know?
That is definitely hard when you're interacting with other family members that do things differently than you would.
Yeah.
Especially like when my kids were younger, and there would be things that were said or done in a way that I was uncomfortable, very uncomfortable with, and it's really hard. And you try to talk to people about ways that they can change, their interactions with kids, and it's just they don't want to hear it. They don't, they're not welcoming that advice unless they ask for it, kind of thing,
Yeah, yeah.
So that's one of the struggles that I've come up against is having those parenting differences within the family, and they do things their way, and and then you're kind of nervous about leaving the kids there for an afternoon, say if they're going to play or something, and you're worried about what's going to be said. And there were a few instances where my boys came home and they said they were uncomfortable and they didn't want to, go back or whatever, because it was a lot more of an aggressive environment than what they were used to. So, and you just talk to them, and you tell them in the best terms, that you can, that that's not how you do things at home. And I realize, that they're in your home right now, and you do things your way.
Yeah.
But just keep in mind that my boys are a little bit more tender spirited, and you might, upset them if, you're too rough with them, if you're screaming all the time,
Right.
So
Yeah, that is difficult, and yeah, I've definitely encountered that when I started speaking more against corporal punishment. And some people have the argument that, well, there's a difference between abuse and discipline, right? And what I do is discipline.
oh yeah, I've heard that argument plenty.
It's not abuse, right? And I mean, I guess you can say, some people say, well, when I hit my kid, I do it out of love, and I'm calm, and I'm not angry. I'm like, well, even if you're hitting your kid out of love, you're still establishing that you're the authority and you're the superior, and they're the subject, right? And, so
And you're bigger than them, and
Yeah.
everything.
right. There's always the imbalance of power, and my goal is always to get rid of that power differential, because yeah, like you said, I'm bigger, taller, stronger, and that doesn't make me right. That just means I was living on the earth for longer than they have.
Right.
That doesn't make what I say have any right, any more right, or it doesn't make violence any more acceptable, so but yeah, so I I'm constantly countering that clash with my family, because actually I saw a great quote recently, and somebody posted, it says, when I get the ruler, you'll know that I'm gonna teach you something about
I saw that
measurement.
just
Isn't
in
that
the last
beautiful?
couple days.
Isn't
Yeah.
that beautiful? When I get the belt, it means I'm getting dressed. when I lift
Right.
when I lift my arm, it means I'm gonna hug you. So
Not hit you.
right. Like we have all these expectations that because our parents and grandparents parented a certain way, that we have to parent exactly the same. If we deviate, then we're something wrong with us.
Yep. Yep.
And you know, I firmly believe that statism starts at home.
Oh, yes.
You know.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that's, that's another thing is my husband isn't an anarchist, and so that we have discussions, about our differences, our political, differences and beliefs, and things like that, and so not really arguments. I don't think he's not like totally against my views, but he just doesn't see how it can be applied in life. How it could actually exist, how a society could exist peacefully without people to keep those crazy ones under control, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, those arguments are kind of interesting. Like, they're always searching for that, that special situation where you need government, right?
Right.
What if there's a rapist? What if somebody's blasting into your home? What if there's a mass murder?
Right.
And oftentimes I say, well, does that happen today? And who does the most murder today?
Right.
Is it individuals, psychopathic individuals, or is it people acting under the name of government, right? Military and police. So any crime that the individual perpetrates can never ever be equal to what can be achieved when acting under authority or government, ever.
Indeed.
Which is what a lot of people kind of forget, And the other thing I tell people is that it doesn't really matter, like in the future, how can we apply a stateless society to this situation? It doesn't matter. All we're saying is that, I think people should have voluntary interactions, and I think people should be free. And I'm not going to force my opinions onto other people, and I don't want them to force their opinions onto me. And that's it. If we don't do that, we're cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's very simple. It's like you don't have to get all deep and philosophical and go into these detailed, convoluted arguments about what would happen in this situation, what private defense company would pop up, and how would they dispute resolution occur. To me that's just details. That's not really necessary. Like we can be moral and empathetic individuals in our own lives, and be, like you said, always be the example, be the model that other people want to emulate.
Exactly. And that's all I care about when I'm sharing my view. Is just to try and reach people from that perspective, that peaceful, loving place that isn't coercive or wanting someone else to force you to do my will, or the other person's will, making me do, what they want.
Yeah.
And that's the only point that I want is that I want everyone to experience freedom and, peace and love, and, from a place that there's no one looming over you with a threat, the threat of jail or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I mean, when lovemaking is not, it's not consensual, it's called rape, right? When charity is not consensual, it's called theft. Although, we kind of think it's different if you call it taxation.
Yeah. If the government's behind it with a gun, then it's okay. But if it's just some guy with a gun pointed to you telling you, give me your money, then it's robbery.
Right. So it's just, we call legal plunder, It's a constant double standard and the hypocrisy that we're constantly surrounded by. And like you said, when I post stuff, a lot of people, I guess, who disagree, they come at you with, they counter your arguments, but sometimes they even come at you with insults and ad hominem attacks and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. And I make sure I don't respond in the same way, because
hard not to, but
yeah, it's hard not to. I know, but you just can't. It's like one of my favorite Socrates quotes is, "When the debate is lost, slander is the tool of the loser."
Right. Yeah, because you can't get anywhere with them anyway. Even if if you're coming back at them, in the same way that they attacked you to begin with,
Right.
you're never going to get anywhere with them. So it's pointless to
Right.
engage in that manner. So you kind of have to come at them with logic and love.
Yeah. Just same thing that when I talk to my kids, calm down, talk
Hmm.
rationally, express your
Breathe.
express your perspective, and if they accept it, okay. If not, then fine. But there's only so much you can do for people. But
True. True.
all right. So is there anything else you want to finish up with before we sign off?
No, I think we covered just about everything that I wanted to talk about.
So okay, so before we leave, I like to ask this of a lot of people. First of all, what's your favorite quote? And actually, we'll start with that. So what's your favorite quote? Like anything, on any topic.
I always like the quote, "No pain, no gain,"
Okay.
and I think that that's because, um, I mean, you don't always have to have pain to have gain,
Hmm.
but I think that when we walk through things that are uncomfortable, there's always a better lesson to be revealed.
Right.
So
Right.
I just feel like, in a sense, we kind of do have to experience the things that are uncomfortable to find the more beautiful things.
Cool. So basically, you talk about the natural consequences, right? To actions, right?
Right.
that I guess corporal punishment would be adding artificial negative
Yeah,
consequences.
that is a pain that is inflicted by the hand of someone else
Right.
versus experiencing something that might be uncomfortable, only to get past that, because we always get past it
Right.
to reveal something more beautiful.
I, I
Something.
had I had a female Filipino worker. She was a physical therapist, and she told me when she was probably like a teenager or maybe 10 years old, she was running on a gravel, where there's gravel, and she tripped and fell, and she scraped her face and it got all bloody, right? And she was in pain and everything, and then when she got home, her parents got mad at her and was, I guess, I don't know if they hit her. They probably did hit her
Oh,
for saying that you're a girl and you have to take care of your face.
oh,
Can
wow.
you imagine?
Wow.
So talk about adding additional shame and
Yeah.
unnecessary
Out
negative
of something
consequences.
that you can't control.
Right, it's like she wanted to fall, right?
Right. That's that's insane.
or like hitting your child for burning their hand on the stove.
Right.
It's so stupid.
I think the lesson was already learned, and that's what happens a lot of times. Is that kids will do something, and there will be a lesson already, a natural consequence to what they've done, and then the parent goes behind again and
Hmm.
applies another lesson, another layer of pain over top of whatever happened to them.
Yeah.
And I've even told my husband that before, where something was going on with my son, and I said, look, he's already learned. You
Hmm.
don't need to, you don't need to chew his butt. Now
Hmm.
I think that you can come back later and talk with him about it, but we don't need to, we don't need to get on him
Yeah.
about the choice that he made, because I think he's already learned the lesson.
Yeah. Kids are, astute, and they pick up on these things, and there's
Hmm.
no need to drive the point home any longer.
Right. Exactly.
So before I let you go, I just want to ask you a question. If you encounter somebody who's interested in unschooling or homeschooling, and is thinking about doing it but unsure, what would you tell them to really like get them thinking about it and try to persuade them?
I think the most important thing to consider when deciding to do unschooling is, think about what happens in a school setting. I mean, what are the things that are most prevalent? I think that we see a lot of bullying and a lot of coercive behavior, to where kids feel like they they have no place if they don't fit in. And so I think that it's important to think about those things and about what your child might be going through, if you're, really thinking about it. And and not every kid is going to experience those things, or they're not going to, maybe they won't say that they are, even if they are. But even for parents who haven't even had their child in a school setting, those are the things that I thought about when I was really, thinking about it, even from day one, like when they were 4 years old or whatever. I was thinking about what I saw others experience in school, like on the bus, at the playground, at the bus stop, all those places, the things that were said. And, kids can be so mean, and, they're going to experience those things out in the world anyway. But I think that it comes from teachers and, and in the classroom, it seems like it's unbearable anymore. And, and I've heard a lot of people talking about personal experiences and how, they don't really have any friends and they just go through the motions every day. And that's something that you don't want your kids just to go through the motions every day, and you want them to experience the things that they love every day.
Right. Yeah. I saw a great meme related to that, which said, you see a picture of a classroom and it says, forced association is not socialization.
Right. It's not.
Right. And people say, well, they might get bullied, they might get picked on, but that's the real world, and they gotta deal with it. They gotta get, it's like, well, it's not a natural situation. They're forced to be there. That's not the real world.
Right.
In the real world, they can choose to dissociate. Right.
Yes. And I think that's the biggest thing to consider when you're considering unschooling or homeschooling even is just think about that forced association and your experiences with it. And even if you had this great, wonderful, 100% positive experience yourself, not every kid is going to have that experience. And even if you had the worst experience, you have to kind of put yourself in the middle of both spectrums and figure out what you want, for your kids. And for me, it was a no-brainer. I was like, well, that's it. I'm not, and then I let them decide as they got older, whether or not they wanted to stay home or go. And, they had a lot of friends that were in the system. And so they were, they were around kids and stuff. So they knew what was going on there. And so they decided for themselves that they didn't want that. So.
Yeah, and I'll just say this before we end that my 3-year-old, so they watched some cartoons on their iPads and iPod, and there's a lot of cartoons that depict going to school. It's really amazing how much they inject that into cartoons for kids,
Right. Oh yeah.
And my son kind of understands how it's not realistic, and I keep asking, do you want to go to school? And my son says no. He's 5 years old, right? And then my daughter, she's like, yeah, I want to go to school. and I said, why? She's like, it's fun. And then my son,
they only make it look fun.
yeah. And then my son was like, no, Serena, you can't play iPod. You can't go outside. You can't go to the park. You can't, you can't do all this stuff that you want to do.
He's got it figured out. That's great.
So it's important to explain to them how it really is, and it's not just
Right.
funny games. You have to sit down. And my son's like, you have to sit down. You have to listen to teacher. You have to write things down and read things.
Yeah.
So and you can't see mommy and daddy. Oh yeah, so it's very important.
You can't play when you want to. You have to do it when they tell you to.
Right.
And it's not for a very long period of time, from what I understand.
Yeah. So it's important to get that done in the beginning. So well, thank you very much, Jackie. It was a wonderful conversation.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
No problem. Really appreciate getting different perspectives on unschooling. I think it helps a lot of families who are considering it. So we need more and more. We need more and more families, parents speaking out about it to
Definitely.
to help them feel more comfortable with the idea. So Very good. Thank you very much. So if anybody wants to help out my show, you can donate through PayPal, Bitcoin, or Patreon. The links are in the description to the video. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. This is Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network, and theseedsofliberty.com and theconsciousresistance.com. Wishing everyone have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.